Good morning. I'm Joanna Sullivan, Editor-in-Chief of the Baltimore Business Journal. Welcome to the future of residential real estate. Like you, I'm looking forward to what our panelists have to say about this unprecedented real estate market. Thank you to partner sponsor Northup Realty for the additional support of today's residential real estate discussion. A few reminders: we will not be taking questions, but you can share your comments in the question panel. Our event staff will share your comments with the audience. Be sure to download today's event program, which can be found in the handout section of the control panel. Now, I would like to welcome BBJ's real estate reporter, Melody Simmons, to introduce the panel and start today's discussion. Melody?
The hot residential real estate market has broken several local and state records already this year. Most realtors say it is because of and despite the grip of the pandemic. That's an odd juxtaposition that translates into just one thing. It's a seller's market. Houses in the Baltimore metro area have sold for record median prices, and buyers are often plunged into bidding wars, with some going to settlement without an in-person tour or a home inspection. National data reported by the business journals this week showed that mortgage origination volume across the U.S. in the second quarter of this year hit a record $1.2 trillion. Some experts are saying that the market is starting to cool a bit, and the low interest rates could rise early next year. Nevertheless, the hunt for new homes is still very active, as some buyers search for upgrades, more space, and an exit from renting. Where will it all lead? We've compiled a panel of experts today to probe the market and its status and future prospects. Our panelists are Darlene Barrett, Loan Officer, Land Home Financial Services; Craig Northrup, Founder and CEO of Northup Realty; Angel Stevens, Condominium Specialist, Inner Harbor Condos, Cummings and Company Realtors; Robin McBride Ziegler, Executive Vice President and COO of Cedar Realty Trust. Let's get down to analyzing the business of buying and selling. The first question goes to all panelists. I'll call on you, and the question is, how do you describe the current Baltimore metro area market this year? Darlene, what would you say?
Well, I would say that, the FMHPI, which is Freddie Mac Housing Index, is saying that the typical house price inflation in the U.S. indicates that there is an increase of 11.3% of the values are increasing double-digit numbers. And we haven't seen anything like this. Typically, a house would increase in value maybe 3% over a period of a year. But we're seeing that it's happening faster. It's just the perfect storm. The rates are still low. There's a lot of inventory out there, and it's a great time. It's a great seller's market right now.
Craig, your boots on the ground. What are you seeing in the Baltimore metro area?
I want to echo what Darlene saying this: 17% appreciation year after year, or year over year, which is absolutely the highest we've seen. It's the second best market I've ever been in. Of course, the first was 2005. The lending had the no-doc loans and stuff like that, which obviously wasn't healthy. It was certainly great for the economy, but it was not healthy for sustainability, And so now the market is strong. It's been very strong. We didn't know where COVID was taking us. It obviously took us to a different place where people want to, pick their next, I call it, where do you want to quarantine next conversation. But with that, we've seen this year record-breaking 1,000 homes sold in 7 days or less since January 1st, which is by far the record-breaking we've ever seen. So we're saying, yes, the market is very strong. It's still doing very well. Anything you got to sell, you should sell now.
I know you said that to me last month. When do you guys sleep?
Well, it's all the time agents. So we're ready for you. If you're ready, we're ready. We work when you don't work, is what I say. And we are approaching and in, when we October, which is the second best month in real estate. It is the second best month in real estate. It's a secret month. Warren Buffett always says that when people are buying, you sell. When people are selling, you buy. You do the opposite because everyone thinks spring, 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 spring. Well, actually, October is and will continue to be the second best month in real estate. So we'll be right in that. So
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we're looking forward to it. I know we're going to be watching that data. Robin, you you have a lot of expertise in multifamily. And what are you seeing from some of the tenants who might want to move into their own homes? What are you seeing in that residential landscape over the past year or so?
Yeah, so our perspective is a little bit different in that we are developing residential products in what's called urban markets, but I do want to give a caveat that we're not talking CBD urban markets, but we're talking markets that are in the city and particularly in underserved markets. And so what we're seeing in that space is the other side of what Craig and Darlene just shared, which are folks who don't necessarily have a single family home to purchase or to sell, but need affordable housing, affordable with a lowercase a housing, attainably priced rental housing. And so we're seeing a real demand in that space. And that, when you talk to council members, mayors of cities, including ones like Baltimore, that's something that municipalities are focused on as well, is how do we continue to provide affordable housing for the middle class and lower middle class type consumers. So that's really the space that we're focused in. And right now it is particularly robust because people are looking to find that place they can afford to live and still have nice amenities around it, similar to what one would experience in the CBD or further out in the suburbs.
Yeah, we're going to circle back to that market in a few minutes, but I know last week the Somerset Homes officially opened, the new development for affordable over there in East Baltimore. It's being celebrated all over the city, so it's setting a whole new standard and a long-awaited standard for that residential market in the urban landscape. Angel, you are an expert on the luxury condo market. Describe the current Baltimore Metro scene for that.
We are extremely busy. It's kind of funny, when all of the surrounding counties were so busy last year, Baltimore City didn't see as much of that. We held our own and things were selling, but they were still taking a little bit longer to sell. But it's kind of interesting because as the surrounding counties have been going up, up, up in price, selling so much higher than listed price, I think people are realizing that it is still very affordable to live in the city. They can still have more of a lifestyle real estate where they can get to everything easily, have amenities. The interest rates are low and the pricing's great. It's kind of funny. Probably about 2-3 months ago is when the proverbial light switch really flipped for me. Things that even I had had on the market for months and months, suddenly everything was selling with multiple offers over list price after months of being on the market. So I think the city's been a little bit lagged because of that. And also through COVID, again, people choose to live in the city for lifestyle. And when everything's closed and there's nothing to walk to that's open and people are trying to get away from other people, then the city is a tougher sell. But now that things are opening back up, there's more to do and people are ready to get out and socialize again. So I think they're all different aspects of it, but we've been thankfully very busy.
Great. Yes, I see that too in the data. Craig, are we in a bubble now? You mentioned 2008, 2005. How do you quantify what we're seeing right now?
Well, when we say bubbles, first of all, we're not in a bubble because bubbles burst, right? In 2005, we were in a bubble because it was a bubble of, no doc loans and appraisers were not, regulated the way they are now. The lending practices have changed immensely. So Darlene, who can tell you even more about the fact that, look, they're stringent. They're certainly a lot tougher. Believe me, we meet all the appraisers, all of that. It's a sustainable market. Will it cool down some, like cool, Yes, it'll maintain, but it's a healthy maintain. It's, there's nothing wrong with a little more inventory coming on. There's nothing wrong with, prices going up, not 17% a year, but maybe 5% a year or 6%. We're always in real estate's always going to be the #1 investment for growth of wealth. Always. So, and you get to live in it. You can't live in a stock. You can't live in some of these other things, right? You can live in a home. You can, you can kind of, it's your place. So no, it is not a bubble. It will adjust as rates will creep up. Remember this: if a rate creeps up by 1%, it takes the affordability of that buyer's house, the affordability of that buyer away, just by 1%, and then they can't afford to buy the homes as they increase. So it's all relative, and it falls back on Darlene to make sure that all the loans get done successfully and that the lending practices keep going the way they are. Right, Darlene?
Right, Craig. I mean, back in the day, it was the wild, wild west. And if you had a pulse, you got a mortgage. Literally, no income, no documentation. We didn't need pay stubs, no bank statements, nothing from the borrowers. So these were, and I was doing them too. They were horrible loans. They were no interest. They were interest only. They were adjustable rate mortgages. And it was a big subprime market. So someone that had a 500 credit score could get a mortgage. And we would put them in a 5-year or a 7-year and hope, come back in 5 to 7 years, we'll refinance you and you can get into a prime rate. So they may start off at 6-7%, but when they come back, the rates will be lower. But guess what? We didn't teach people how to manage their money and how to manage their finances. So we saw more people going into foreclosure. By the time that 5-year period hit and time to refinance them, they weren't prepared. The credit score could have, in some cases, was worse. But then this is the kicker. This is why people walked away, because if they did not refinance in that 5 to 7 years, the rate was going to go up 3, 5% more. So double digits on the interest rate. So people couldn't afford it because their payment was doubling. So we just saw people walk away from their homes. And it was the biggest foreclosure crisis in our country. But now, like Craig has said, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. So we are now, loan officers have to be licensed through the NMLS. It's a database. And our license has to be registered. We have to take classes. And now we're clean. We have to be clean. Back then, it was people charging 10% points and all of this stuff. And we're lucky if we get 1 point now. So, but it's kind of leveled the playing field as well. So someone can go to, lender A or lender B. It's not going to be that much difference anymore. And the appraisers are now, we can't call them. Back in the day, I would call an appraiser and say, hey, I need $250,000 on this house. And guess what the appraiser would get me? $250,000 or more. No questions asked. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. So now I cannot even contact the appraiser. They're a third party that's issued from the lender. So everything is clean. Title company is clean because they were all in cahoots. The lender, the title company, the appraisers, everybody was in cahoots. And these properties were inflated because of the appraisals. So now I don't believe we're in a bubble. I agree with Craig that we're not in a bubble now, because although values are increasing, there's great equity that's growing. Back then, there was no equity. Everybody was upside down in their mortgage. They couldn't even just sell it. So now if someone is in trouble, they can just sell the home or get a modification now. So it's a totally different climate, We're clean now.
Well, we just pierced the veil there. We've looked under the rug and every other cliche you can imagine. But Robin, where do we go? How do you get renters now to take that big step? I mean, where do you see that divide there? There was a lot of fear and anxiety about taking the step to become a homeowner after this big foreclosure crisis. Where do you see renters now in, taking a financial risk to buy a home?
So I think as you look at kind of the millennials and the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, the younger generation has a different view of home ownership than in our generation, good, bad, or indifferent. And so I think there's a lot more transitory mindset with young 20 somethings, even 30 somethings. And so from a rental standpoint, that is helpful because there is not the so I think it's a couple of things. I think it's the mindset, and I think it's also, kids who have seen their parents go through the experience that Darlene just described, and home ownership doesn't appeal to them as much as it did with an older demographic. So I think there's that. I think there's also and I think Angel mentioned this as well, the desire to, there's still a desire to live, work, play, and for people to have amenities nearby and to be able to go downstairs and eat at a restaurant or go get their nails done or go to the local bar. All of those desires are still there. And so I think if you are designing in a smart way to kind of accommodate how the world has shifted post-pandemic, and you're providing, those services and amenities, I think that there's a real market for that. As you have seen cities, open back up, whether you're talking Baltimore or, currently I live in New York, and where you see people, you see vibrancy. So, in the areas where there's residential, whether it's single family, multifamily, condo, around those areas is where you see vibrancy, and restaurants and stores and people gathering. It's in the areas where you have office maybe, but not so much residential product, that you don't see that same vibrancy. So I think that's kind of where things are shifting to, and there is still a desire for that, rental, the rental space as people evolve. I mean, what you're even seeing is with people with young children, that used to be once someone had a kid, that was the first entree into home ownership. That's getting delayed, and people are having one or two or three children and still staying in a rental home.
Okay, that makes sense too. Angel, you are an expert on that luxury condo market. You have the distinction of selling the Clancy market this year, in the past year, which was on the, listed for many, many years, many moons, as they say. Who's buying the luxury condos? Talk about what you're seeing as far as the buyers today.
It's interesting. I mean, Baltimore always has an ongoing influx from the Hopkins, the University of Maryland, Mercy, some of the corporate properties downtown. But what I see a lot of, and it's kind of interesting to me, is I'm getting more parents and grandparents of these people where their kids are here. They've decided to make a life. The parents are retiring and they want to be with their kids and grandkids. So for a lot of those people, living downtown is an obvious choice. It has the walkability. There's very little maintenance with the condos. They can kind of come and go, especially if it's a second home. Lock the door and everything's taken care of for them. But it's kind of nice. I've noticed more people wanting to move back and be closer to family.
That makes sense too. Craig, what are you seeing with the luxury housing in that market? Describe that market. And it's mostly, in the suburban area, I'm assuming, just because Guilford and Baltimore, there's a lot of for sale signs up in the Guilford area. But talk a little bit about that luxury market for larger houses, single family.
Single family homes, we sold over 100 homes over $1 million this year in the luxury. So, and I say that because I've just sold 31 of them just myself. And the reason is again, where do I want to quarantine next? They're right sizing. Why not upgrade right now? Because I can. Economy's strong. Interest rates just like free money. And the ones that have been saving and waiting are not waiting anymore because they really are investing in real estate. And that's, if they're investing in real estate and the luxury market's doing well, I would suggest everyone else follow them, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's certainly where people are putting their money. 113 months of straight appreciation for real estate right now. 113 months of straight appreciation. So it certainly gives that confidence, which is what key is for people to spend the kind of money in the luxury markets. You've got the low interest rates, which keep remaining, so they're loaning the money. most of them. Now, what's interesting is we've gotten a lot since the pandemic from New York. New York and New Jersey are actually our best two clients because their taxes are so high and their prices, they can buy a beautiful luxury home here for the same amount they buy a condo up there with the amount of taxes and everything else. So we love them buyers, and we're seeing a lot of that from New York and New Jersey right now. So our luxury market is absolutely the best I've ever seen it, even past 2005 right now.
Right. And the Baltimore market is still considered a good value, right?
Correct. It is still a great value, great opportunity. Again, everything everybody has said, Robin, from the walkabilities to Angel to talking about the conveniences. I mean, honestly, and we call it right sizing. There are people that are right sizing up or right sizing down. It doesn't matter. You're just right sizing. And a lot of times, even my wife says, I'd love to live at, Harborview or something like that. Come down there and be able to walk to everything. There is that beautiful convenience that people will never get away from, that the city offers. And that's what attracts the city. And Baltimore's done a great job of that. New York has had some issues because they really got hit the hardest, and they have come down, and Baltimore has attracted or has welcomed them much better than the other states.
Yeah. Right, Darlene, now there's some signals coming out in the financial world that there could be an interest rate increase next year. I'm sure you're kind of feeling that movement right now. You're on the lookout for it. Talk a little bit about if the rates go up 1-2 percentage points. I know we talked about that taking away some of the buyers' ability and what they can buy and what they can afford. But what do you think the impact on the market will be in 2022?
I think it'll help to slow things down just a little bit. And like Craig said, the appreciation may slow down a little bit, but hey, it's still going to be a great time to buy. I still believe it's going to be still even a seller's market during that time, even if rates increase from, we're at 2.8, 2.8%. They started off about three and a half, maybe earlier this year, and now we're down to 2.8, right in that range. So, people are buying now, and I think the first of the year, they're still going to be buying. It's still going to be a great time. Typically in the winter months, November, December, January is typically a little slower, but I just see, spring is coming again, and people are going to still want to buy. Even if your rate is up 1%, it may only affect your bottom line, $50. So people are still going to buy. It's still going to be great. It's still going to be a great, great, tsunami.
Are you finding that? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, sorry, Val. It was just piggyback on Darlene just said a little bit. Is I had a client, and a lot of clients say, well, if I buy in this appreciation market, right, I'm going to lose money because when it changes, just like we got worried in 2005, I'm going to lose money. Well, literally this time last year, I had a client that bought there, and they were worried. Exact same thing. They had got relocation. They were worried that they were going to lose money. They called me up. I was able to get, they even put some money into the house. I got all their money back. I got commissions all taken care of, and they still made about a 5% profit in 1 year. 1 year. Never, ever has that happened in my 35 years in career, ever. Yeah. So
that's
even
extraordinary.
Though appreciation, there's an opportunity still to make money in real estate. You follow me? You're not buying wrong, because you would have bought, if you didn't buy last year, you lost 17%, right? So by right, you might not get 17%, but guess what? 5 to 7% appreciation is really good money. Go to the bank and ask them for it. See how that works.
Amen to that. And I think that's what a lot of consumers don't understand, that your house is really like a giant savings account, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Best investment you can ever make. And I think the whole panel would all agree to that.
Yeah. Robin, let's circle back to that affordable housing issue. You had mentioned, in talks that there's conversions going on with some of the retail, and Cedar Trust is seeing some of that into multifamily and more affordable units. Talk about the need for that. And there is a whole new wave of this availability going on. Finally, this has been a long awaited conversion. With retail going, being very shaky with e-commerce, is this the greatest opportunity we've seen for this market?
Yeah, I mean, certainly retail has been, batted around a lot, and has had a rough go of it from the e-commerce, entering of e-commerce and then followed up by the pandemic. But what I would say is coming out of all of that, is what's happened in the retail industry is that it just accelerated what was already happening, as far as good retail continuing to do well and bad retail closing down. And so as people are looking at what to do with all of this retail space, I mean, as a country, we are over retailed. If you think about every bodega, every coffee shop and retail space that you see throughout the country, all of it combined, we're over retailed as a country. And so as that bad retail closed down, what do you do with it? And so a lot of retail landlords are looking at everything from transitioning it into healthcare, into industrial, into storage, into all kinds of different uses. At Cedar, one of the things that we have focused on is looking at shopping centers that are positioned in markets that would do better or be more creative or have more value as a mixed use property, which includes having residential on top of ground floor retail, and in some cases we even have some office. But that is, really taking advantage of both things, repositioning retail so it's at its highest and best use, but then also taking advantage of where they're located. Some of our assets are in, high population density locations. It may not be the highest income, but it is very, very high population density. Those types of markets tend to dovetail with the need for affordable lowercase a housing, where for all of that population density, there's sometimes the gap between low income housing and higher end single family homes. And for that gap in the middle, that's what we're looking to solve for, is folks who work every day, make a good living, but can't afford downtown CBD rental rates, can't afford, or maybe they may not have the down payment put together to buy a single family home, but they have disposable income, have a good job, and want to live in a nice place with nice amenities. So that's kind of the spot that we're seeing that we're trying to fill.
And I just oh, go ahead, Craig.
No, I'm just saying, first of all, I love the word called vibrancy. I love that word. I mean, that just shows and sums up what you just said was, well, it was just incredible. Support local businesses. We're all about that. You really need to help us all. I think we've learned we got to help support our retail. And then, yes, I'm seeing a lot of what you're talking about. Retail on the first level, condos above. It's becoming more the trend I've ever seen, period. And I have a lot of friends that are developers as well, and I've seen that. So, Robin, I echo everything you just said. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Darlene. Go ahead.
That's okay. I did want to bring out that Baltimore, Maryland, is very good at down payment assistance programs. There's down payment assistance to help borrowers in Baltimore City. Baltimore County has a program. The state of Maryland, can give up to 3% toward a homeowner's down payment and closing costs. So there is some, and it's geared toward low to moderate income families. So there is an income, cap for those. But I work with those all the time, and I love it because, especially in this market, sellers aren't helping. They're not giving up any seller help. It's something we've never seen before. So our borrowers are having to come out of pocket with more money. So I know at Land Home, we do have an in-house down payment assistance program where we can get up to 5%, 6% in some cases to assist with down payment assistance. And it helps because if they want their offer to be good, they can't even ask for seller help. Just don't even ask.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, Darlene.
Don't even ask.
I was going to ask you about that because that is an issue for some of the buyers, that they get squeezed out of the bidding and they really lose their opportunity for certain houses in a certain bracket. And this has been very discouraging. But these programs have really helped to push it over the mountain and get them into a mortgage and get them into their own house. Where do you see that going in the next year? I mean, this is like a dream come true if people know about it.
I think it's going to increase, and a lot of these are bond loans. So just about, many states do have these programs, and it's to help people to get into homes. And in some cases, it's a second lien on the house, and it stays with that property typically until they refinance or sell their home. But then in some cases, Baltimore City has a grant. Um, Employees that work for Johns Hopkins, they offer, it's around $15,000 that Johns Hopkins will give their employees. So, Under Armour, various employers are also offering incentives, and I think it's going to increase. It has to increase because the buyer's going to need that help, so they don't have to come out of pocket with, the 3% down or the 3.5% down plus closing costs. That can get really costly for, a first-time home buyer.
Mhm. Perfect.
If I
Angel, I
could
want
jump,
to go to the other end of the spectrum and just talk about that luxury condo market. Are the buyers you're seeing in it for the long haul, or are they buying for the short-term glitz of a fancy address and a beautiful view? I mean, what are you seeing? I see a lot of activity on that in the luxury condo market.
well, two things. Number one, I wanted to answer the last question also and tell you that I think a big difference right now is I'm seeing a lot of first-time homebuyer housing available. And it's because you have to remember from 2010 to 2018, there wasn't a lot of appreciation. So people were kind of stuck. A lot of people couldn't afford to get out of their homes because there was no appreciation in it, or very little. And now suddenly it's more of a catch-up market where suddenly people have appreciation. So a lot of these first-time homes are now going to be more available because they can upgrade and get something larger or whatever their needs are. As far as the condos, yeah, it's interesting. A lot, we have somewhat of a transient market because we have people coming in through the hospitals, and sometimes they'll be here for 5 to 7 years, depending on their programs. But for the most part, most of my clients I've had for 35 years. There are a lot of them I've had where I sold them their place originally, and they're still there. So a lot of people use it and go on to use it as retirement. They may keep it as a second home and purchase somewhere else and come and go. Had one last year where they were no longer using their condo and their kid moved in for a while. So people like the luxury of it. And when I say luxury, I mean the ability to have the pools and the health clubs without having to take care of them. COVID is also was very convenient for people living in certain buildings with just to have help with things. They knew they weren't alone, and they knew that if they needed someone, they could call down to the front desk and they could get immediate help. They can get help bringing up their groceries. They can leave it at the front doors for them. So it also kind of helped, I think, part of the segment cope with COVID and not going out if that's what they chose to do.
Okay,
That's an interesting effect, a way to look at it, Angel. It's interesting about the condo market because there was a sort of a question, the elevators, the common spaces, all of that in the beginning, but that's a great way of looking at with why they got through COVID and the benefits of it. I mean, having help, having all these luxuries. One of the things that's really increased immensely through COVID is outdoor spaces,
Yeah.
fire pits and pools and every imaginable thing outside has become impossible right now to get. And if it is, it's 3 times that amount. It's like buying mulch in spring. Yeah, you're going to spend a lot more than you are mulch in fall. It's a natural conversation. I tell people, buy mulch in fall, you'll save a lot of money. But the point is, pools are up 137%. 137% of pools because you can't build them right now because the demand is too high for the companies to even do it. So you're a year and a half out for a pool already. So these outdoor spaces, luxury condos, stuff like that, where I can pull in, pull out, and in the sense of where I don't have to maintain anything, have reversed itself versus the first concern was, hey, do I want to be in common spaces all the time? And that's a phenomenal way to look at it, Angel. And I can see why you're doing so well now with it.
The condos did a really good job with COVID and they blocked off space. A lot of times in health clubs, for example, they would only allow 2 people at a time, and you sign up and they're there for an hour, and then people come in and clean and disinfect in between, and then the next 2 came in. So
Nice.
I have to say, all the buildings downtown really pulled together and I think did a great job making people feel comfortable.
Absolutely fantastic to hear, and certainly obviously benefited through COVID then in that way. So.
Yeah, Craig, you've expanded into Delaware. Talk a little bit about that market. We're focused more on Baltimore metro area, but you have a story to tell about what you're seeing out there with some expansion.
Well, all of a sudden, not only did they care about outdoor spaces, they didn't care about water. Water, coastal, Delmarva has just exploded. Second home market, when the economy is good, the second market's very good now. Obviously, you can get a write-off up to $750,000, on your interest. And so what happens is, all of a sudden, I opened it literally in Fenwick, first, and it was my fastest growing office. Then all of a sudden, now we got 2 more offices in Delaware. 1 out of every 3 clients we deal with moved to Delaware. Taxes. You literally have a house in Maryland, let's just say for $1 million, you're going to pay about $15,000 in taxes. In Delaware, you're paying $1,500.
Ooh, that's a biggie.
Taxes, guys. It's a big why. You can drive there. So in safety of getting places, you can drive there. And water right now is so priceless, not even funny. If you can see it, feel it, live it, it's that quarantine next conversation that so many people are moving to the Delaware markets and or Ocean City. We have offices in Ocean City as well. That sort of that coastal side. When COVID first hit, it was actually the lowest record of people getting, in that area was Ocean City, ironically. It's just one of them facts. It was kind of crazy. They'll be upset at me now saying that because everybody will flood there again. But ideally, that was sort of it. But it's more the attraction of the outdoor spaces, lots to do, very similar to what you guys were talking about with city conveniences, because you're very within walking distance, a lot of walkability. Walkability will be the word for 2022. Walkability. Where can I walk to? What can I convenience? My no maintenance, the right sizing, all of these great words, vibrancy. I love that word. I got to use it. It's just all of that's going to happen in 2022. I see it. We're seeing it. That trend of Delaware is absolutely the hottest state in the nation for sales right now in increasing growth.
That's amazing. Well, we've had a vibrant, let's just use that word. The vibrancy of this conversation has been great.
Yes.
I think we have to bring it in for a landing, even though we could be on and talking for another hour about everything we're seeing. There's so many issues we didn't get to, but I know that hopefully we can meet again and talk about this incredible market. I think it's going to move. I agree with Darlene and Robin and Angel and Craig that it's going to move into next year as well. So we're going to see some new data, some new trends, and there'll be more for us to, to analyze next year. Thank you for being on the panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you, Melody, Darlene, Angel, Robin, and Craig. That was a great discussion on the future of residential real estate. Sounds like we're going to continue to see a hot housing market. From the Baltimore Business Journal and our sponsor, Northrop Realty, thank you for attending. We hope you remain safe and healthy. Have a great rest of your day.